From the dawn of humanity, we've always been fascinated by mysteries that transcend our limited understanding of the world. There are secrets hidden in the shadows of existence, invisible forces that shape reality in ways we don't yet fully grasp. Among these mysteries, there's one in particular that has intrigued generations and spanned centuries. A special mark, reserved only for those chosen by something greater, something divine. This mark isn't just a symbol, it's a direct connection to supreme power, placing its bearers in a unique position, almost incomprehensible to the rest of us. This idea might sound like something out of ancient legends or mythologies lost to time, but stories about this mark persist to this day. It wasn't given randomly. Those who carry it are extraordinary individuals, gifted with qualities that defy logic and inspire respect, admiration, and sometimes even fear. But what exactly is this mark? And why do only a select few among billions of people have the privilege of bearing it? To understand this, we need to go back to the beginning, delve into the roots of these ancient stories passed down to us over the centuries. Ancient accounts speak of a time when the gods, or God, depending on the beliefs of each people, decided to choose certain individuals to receive this extraordinary gift. These chosen ones weren't selected by chance. They possessed rare qualities, purity of heart, strength of spirit, and an unwavering ability to face adversity. It wasn't just about being different. They had a mission, a greater purpose that went beyond their own lives. In early civilizations, these individuals were revered and feared. Some could heal serious wounds with a simple touch. Others saw the future or changed the destiny of nations with a single word. Their abilities went far beyond what any ordinary human could imagine. They were charismatic leaders, invincible warriors, wise men whose knowledge seemed to come from a source beyond time and space. However, these abilities weren't gifts given without purpose. Each of these chosen ones knew that their mark was both a blessing and a responsibility. They were there to serve, to protect, to guide. It was a divine calling, and refusing it wasn't an option. But here's what's perhaps most intriguing. This mark isn't always visible to the human eye. Sometimes it manifests as an inexplicable magnetism, an aura that attracts people. Other times it emerges in moments of crisis when all seems lost, and something within these individuals awakens, revealing a power they themselves didn't know they possessed. Imagine yourself in this situation. You're facing your darkest moment when suddenly an unknown ability emerges within you. It could be superhuman strength, profound wisdom, or even the power to control the elements of nature. What would you do with this gift? Would you be able to resist the temptation to use it for your own benefit? Before we continue, I'd like to ask you, the viewer, to subscribe to this channel. If this content is prompting you to think about these profound questions, leave a like, comment on what you thought, and share it with others who also appreciate reflections on the unknown. Now, let's move forward, because we're just beginning to explore the secrets of this divine mark and the impact it has had on the history of humanity. Throughout history, those chosen by this divine mark have not only stood out for their extraordinary abilities, but also for the profound impact they have left on the societies and cultures around them. Their lives have been marked by a duality. On one hand, the almost incomprehensible power they possessed. On the other, the internal and external struggles they faced to keep that power under control. These individuals weren't just beings with special gifts. They were living symbols of something greater, representatives of a force that transcended the material world. Imagine someone capable of healing serious wounds with a simple touch, or someone whose wisdom seemed to come from a source beyond time and space. These people not only changed the destiny of nations, but also inspired entire generations to believe in the power of good, justice, and compassion. However, these gifts didn't come without a price. Each ability granted by the mark was accompanied by a colossal responsibility, an emotional and spiritual burden that few could bear. Ancient accounts show us that these individuals often faced challenges that went far beyond physical battles. They fought against invisible forces, dark entities that tried to corrupt their purposes and extinguish the light they carried within themselves. These forces weren't always visible, but they could be felt in moments of loneliness, in silent nights where fear whispered in their ears, trying to make them give up. It was a constant war, both external and internal. But perhaps the greatest challenge these chosen ones faced was confronting their own weaknesses. As powerful as they were still human. And like any human being, they had doubts, fears, and moments of uncertainty. The difference is that these emotions, when felt by a bearer of the mark, could have devastating consequences. Imagine yourself in a position of absolute power, capable of performing impossible feats, but at the same time questioning whether you really deserve this gift. Am I worthy? Am I using my power in the right way? These questions echoed in their minds, turning each decision into a test of character. And here's the crucial point. The power given to the chosen ones was never a selfish gift. It wasn't meant to be used for their own benefit, but to serve something greater. Each act, each choice had implications that went far beyond the individual. They were called to protect, guide, and heal, always resisting the temptation of absolute power. Many of those who failed in this mission, who succumbed to the seduction of controlling everything and everyone around them, ended up losing the true purpose for which they were chosen. Their stories are a warning to us. Power, when misused, can destroy even the strongest. However, those who managed to overcome these trials became living legends. Their stories have spanned centuries, passed down from generation to generation, as a reminder that light always prevails, even in the darkest hours. They taught us that true power isn't in dominating others, but in dominating oneself. It's the ability to face our own demons, to recognize our weaknesses and transform them into strengths. This is the legacy that these chosen ones have left for humanity. Now think for a moment. If you were one of these chosen ones, how would you react to this responsibility? Would you be willing to sacrifice everything, comfort, security, even your own happiness, to fulfill a greater purpose? This is exactly the question that defines the essence of being a chosen one. It's not about the power itself, but about what you do with it. Before we move on to the next chapter of this journey, I'd like to ask you again, the viewer, to reflect on what we're discussing here. If this video is inspiring you to think about the role of power and responsibility in our lives, leave your comment below. Share your reflections, your doubts, your ideas. Together, we can explore these fascinating themes even more deeply. Now, let's continue our exploration, because we're about to delve into the lasting impact of these chosen ones on the history of humanity. Over the centuries, those chosen, marked by the divine mark, have left a legacy that transcends time and space. Their stories are not just narratives of extraordinary powers, but also reflections on the lasting impact these individuals have had on humanity. Each of them, in some way, shaped the destiny of nations, inspired generations, and planted seeds of hope in despairing hearts. But what exactly makes their actions so significant? How did they manage to transform the world around them so profoundly? These individuals didn't just perform impressive feats. They personified values that often seem forgotten in the turmoil of everyday life. Love, justice, compassion, and selfless giving weren't just concepts for them. They were ways of life. They showed us that true power isn't in dominating others or accumulating wealth, but in serving with humility and purpose. Their lives were living examples of how light can prevail even in the darkest hours. Imagine a time when the world was on the brink of collapse, divided by wars, famine, and despair. Now imagine someone emerging in this scenario, not as a messianic savior, but as a calm, charismatic presence that brought with it a sense of order and hope. These chosen ones didn't need armies or weapons to change the course of history. Their presence, their words, and above all, their actions were enough. They were beacons in the darkness, guiding others to a better path. But here's something fascinating. The marks left by these individuals aren't just in the great events that changed the destiny of civilizations. They're also in the small things, in the seemingly insignificant gestures that over time have become symbols of goodness and resilience. A healing touch in a moment of pain, a word of wisdom amidst chaos, an act of courage when everyone around was paralyzed by fear. These moments, however small they may seem, have the power to transform lives. And perhaps this is the most important lesson we can draw from these ancient accounts. The impact of our actions isn't measured only by their greatness, but by their intention and sincerity. We don't need to perform miracles to make a difference. Just act with love and compassion. Just be present when the world around us seems to crumble. These chosen ones taught us that even the smallest gesture of kindness can be a spark of light in the darkness. However, the legacy of these individuals isn't limited to the past. It continues to live today, in each of us. The divine mark they carried isn't exclusive to them. Although few have been chosen to bear it visibly, we all have within us a flame of that same divinity. Perhaps we can't control the elements or heal wounds with a touch, but we are all capable of performing acts of love, compassion, and sacrifice. And it's in these acts that the true spirit of the mark resides. Now think for a moment. If you could choose between being remembered for great achievements or for small acts of kindness, what would your choice be? Often it's in the simplest gestures that we find the greatest meaning. The chosen ones have shown us this repeatedly throughout history. They didn't seek glory or recognition. They sought to serve, protect, and guide. And that's exactly what we should seek in our own lives. Before we move on to the final chapter of this journey, I'd like to ask you again, the viewer, to reflect on what we're discussing here. If this video is inspiring you to think about the impact that your actions can have on the world, leave your comment below. Share your ideas, your doubts, your reflections. Together, we can continue exploring these fascinating themes and discover how to apply them in our lives. Now let's move forward, because we're about to delve into the final reflection on how this divine flame dwells within each of us. We've reached the final chapter of this journey, and here's the deepest truth about the divine mark. It's not just a symbol reserved for a few, but a flame that burns within every human being. Although only some have been visibly marked as chosen, we all carry within us a spark of that same divinity. This idea may seem surprising, even challenging, but that's exactly what the stories of the chosen ones teach us. The power to transform the world isn't limited to supernatural abilities or extraordinary gifts. It's in the small choices we make every day, in the actions that reflect love, compassion, and sacrifice. Imagine for a moment, you don't need to heal wounds with a touch or control the elements of nature to be a light in the world. Just act with kindness. Offer a word of encouragement when someone is lost. Lend a hand when someone needs support. These simple, seemingly insignificant acts have the power to change lives. They are manifestations of the same divine force that guided the chosen ones throughout history. The difference is that while they were called to perform great deeds, we are called to perform small miracles in everyday life. But here's the crucial point. This spark within us doesn't ignite on its own. It needs to be nurtured, cultivated, embraced. It's easy to ignore it. Let it be extinguished by the weight of daily responsibilities, by the distractions of the modern world, by the voices that tell us that we are too insignificant to make a difference. However, the accounts of the chosen ones show us that there is no insignificant person. Each of us has the potential to be a beacon of hope, an agent of change, a bearer of light. And perhaps this is the most powerful message of all. Being a chosen one doesn't depend on visible signs or extraordinary abilities. It depends on accepting the internal call to act with kindness, purpose, and courage. It's not about waiting for a grandiose moment or a spectacular revelation. It's about recognizing that at this very moment, you already possess everything you need to make a difference. You are already capable of being a light in the world. Now, think again about the question we asked before. What would you do if you discovered that you can accomplish the impossible? Perhaps the answer is simpler than it seems. Perhaps you are already accomplishing the impossible, even without realizing it. Every time you choose the path of love instead of hate, of compassion instead of selfishness, of justice instead of indifference, you are answering the divine call. You are living the spirit of the mark, and here's the final invitation. Embrace that spark within you. Don't ignore it. Don't underestimate it. Allow it to guide your actions, your words, your decisions. Be the light the world needs, even in the darkest moments. Remember that the legacy of the chosen ones isn't just a story of the past. It lives on today, in each and every one of us. And now, more than ever, we need people willing to carry that flame, to keep it burning bright amidst the darkness. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you to deeply reflect on everything we've discussed here. If this video inspired you to think about the power within you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your ideas, your questions. Together, we can continue exploring these fascinating themes and discover how to apply them in our lives. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so now. Your presence here is important, and together we can continue this journey of discovery and transformation. Finally, remember, the world needs light, and that light can come from you. Don't wait for a visible sign or a special mark. The spark is already within you, waiting for the right moment to shine. Accept the call, answer the purpose, and be a part of this story. Because in the end, we are all chosen. We are all capable of being a light in the world.